Guinea-Bissau's War of Independence, 1963–1974. One of Africa's most effective anti-colonial struggles. The Guinea-Bissau War of Independence, waged from 1963 to 1974, stands out as one of the most determined and strategically executed liberation movements in post-colonial Africa. Unlike many independence movements that relied heavily on diplomacy, Guinea-Bissau's was a sustained, an organized guerrilla war led by the African Party for the Independence of Guinea and Cape Verde, PAIGC, under the leadership of Amílcar Cabral. The conflict not only led to the liberation of Guinea-Bissau from Portuguese rule, but also influenced revolutionary movements across the continent. Background: Portuguese colonialism in West Africa. Portugal began establishing trade and colonial outposts along the West African coast in the 15th century. Over time, the area that is now Guinea-Bissau became known as Portuguese Guinea and was folded into Portugal's imperial network. It played a central role in the transatlantic slave trade and later became a marginal colonial outpost where political and civil rights were severely restricted for the African majority. By the 20th century, Portugal, unlike other European powers, had refused to decolonize. Under the Estado Novo, a fascist regime led by Antonio de Oliveira Salazar, Portugal maintained a firm grip on its African colonies, including Angola, Mozambique, and Guinea-Bissau, treating them as overseas provinces rather than colonies. Formation of the PAIGC and Cabral's vision. In 1956, Amílcar Cabral, an agronomist, writer, and nationalist, co-founded the PAIGC, African Party for the Independence of Guinea and Cape Verde, with a clear goal: end Portuguese colonial rule in both Guinea-Bissau and Cape Verde. Cabral's vision was unique. He emphasized political education and local empowerment. He insisted on a disciplined, community-rooted guerrilla army. He saw culture as a weapon of resistance, promoting local traditions and languages as acts of defiance. The outbreak of war, 1963. In January 1963, the PAIGC launched an armed insurrection against Portuguese forces, beginning what would become a protracted guerrilla war. The movement focused on rural areas, where the PAIGC quickly established liberated zones, mobilizing peasants and local leaders, building parallel governance structures with health clinics, schools, and agricultural cooperatives. The Portuguese military, though better equipped, was overwhelmed by the PAIGC's tactics and their knowledge of the terrain. The war grew in scale, and by the late 1960s, over half the country was under PAIGC control, international support, and strategic edge. The PAIGC received substantial support from the Soviet Union, Cuba, China, and other socialist-leaning nations, as well as neighboring African countries like Guinea-Conakry, which served as a base for operations. The movement also stood out for its effective use of radio and propaganda, a focus on women's participation and rural health care, a rare combination of military, social, and political organization. Cabral's diplomatic efforts ensured global recognition of the struggle and built solidarity across Africa, Asia, and Latin America. Assassination of Amílcar Cabral, 1973. On January 20, 1973, just months before independence, Amílcar Cabral was assassinated in Conakry, Guinea, by disgruntled PAIGC members, allegedly with Portuguese complicity. His death was a severe blow to the movement, but the PAIGC pressed on with his ideological framework firmly intact: unilateral independence and Portugal's fall, 1973–1974. On September 24, 1973, the PAIGC declared unilateral independence in areas it controlled. Though Portugal refused to recognize it, over 80 countries, including the UN and the Organization of African Unity, did. The turning point came in April 1974, when the Carnation Revolution in Portugal overthrew the dictatorship. The new Portuguese government quickly moved to end its colonial wars. Guinea-Bissau's independence was officially recognized on September 10, 1974. Legacy of the war. The war left Guinea-Bissau with a profound sense of pride and identity. It became a symbol of African self-determination, showing that organized grassroots resistance could defeat a European empire. However, post-independence Guinea-Bissau also inherited serious challenges: a devastated economy, political divisions, a long history of instability and coups. Despite these challenges, the PAIGC's struggle remains one of the most disciplined and visionary liberation efforts in modern African history.